orient us, right? We live in an evolutionary cosmos, right? That's where we are. That's the context. That's what we realized at some point in kind of the cutting edge human realization and discovery is that evolution is not just biological, but it's actually the nature of reality. Everything is on a trajectory, right? And everything is already perfect and whole and unified and manifesting more and more layers and levels and stages of complexity, right? Interdependence, interconnectivity, right? Wholeness. And, of course, it wouldn't stop at humans, so it continues in humans. And that's what vertical development is actually depicting, is how does evolution happen through the individual? And as we've discussed, we've seen it happening in the collective too, right? In reinventing organizations, we see that organizations are created to respond to needs in their environment, right? And that's actually how evolution continues, is you have people coming together and organizing to fulfill a purpose. And that's what we call our evolutionary purpose, right? So there's an evolutionary purpose that organizations have, and organizations themselves evolve, right? So at one point in history, we needed organizations that were bureaucratic and kind of administrative, and everything was conforming to the systematized way of doing things, right? We call that the amber stage, right? And then at some point that wasn't enough. That was actually too rigid, and there needed to be a new kind of organization that was more about achievement, right? So we have this orange stage organization where systems had to be efficient and effective, like they actually had to meet certain outcomes, right? And we started using more and more data and controls, right, and systems to ensure things were running smoothly, right? And that strategies were cascaded down into the tactics at the smallest level. And so you have kind of these top-down hierarchical organizations that were focused on results, right? And that was really important. That still is important, right, in this world. And yet, we have statistics that show that most employees are disinterested, disengaged in their organizations, right? So organizations started to evolve, continue to evolve, to incorporate the human as a whole being, right? It's like, oh, actually, I have needs and I have desires to express my talents and skills that that need to be experienced, that organizations could benefit from, right? So we started to move more towards the green stage of organizations where people could show up as themselves and actually focus on the invisible aspects of working together, right? And actually tap into the culture more intentionally, right? And relationships became really important, right? And kind of treating each other like family almost became important. And yet then there's still yet another layer that has emerged, realizing that all of these stages of organizations actually have a place because every individual is an expression of the evolutionary spiral, right? So we all have every level, every stage within us, every previous stage, right? And so here you are among those who have seen this, that there's important value in both, performance and relationships, right? And, efficiency, effectiveness, and meaning and purpose, right? And you see it all as woven into the tapestry of an evolutionary process, right? And so you are an evolutionary chaplain, right? So your role is actually to hold the whole spiral, the whole evolutionary spiral, and balance and navigate these polarities, because polarities aren't things that need to be fixed and solved, but actually held and dynamically engaged, right? They're actually both important. These opposite tendencies are both important. Right? So here we are in this kind of uncomfortable, messy process, but actually there's, in a certain sense, there's nothing else, that's like, that's the best thing that we can do, right? Is actually do our best to navigate these polarities and optimize the functioning of the whole, of every stage, right? And everyone has something to contribute. So the last thing I'll say in terms of orienting us is every single individual, right, is a unique expression of, we can say, true self, right? The unique expression of the one, unique expression of evolution. And if we think of it as kind of a puzzle, a big puzzle, every individual has their unique gifts and they fit perfectly in a place in the puzzle, right? And organizations, the roles of an organization here in this stage is to look at what are the unique gifts of each individual and how can they contribute to the evolutionary purpose of the organization, but not only for the evolutionary purpose, because there's also intrinsic value to every individual, right? And so our role is looking at, well, what are these unique gifts that each of these individuals in the organization have to offer? Because they were built into they were here, that's why they're here. And how can the organization leverage these gifts to, to actually fulfill the purpose of the organization? And sometimes people just don't no longer fit in the organization. They actually, their gifts take them somewhere else, right? And that's totally fine too. And it's just really about discernment, right? And weaving them together. So that's some of the orientation that I'm here with, and that I'm inviting us both to be in here with, right? Is this is actually the nature of reality and how, how we are here to operate in a certain sense. Yeah. So within that framework, within that context, what comes up? What is it that's, if you want to check in, maybe just to share. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? How's your body today? And then we can go into the other areas.